Next episode of the 52 Weeks we're talking about today is sumps. And that episode was titled Sumps, What They Do and Which Should You Select. What's our core belief here?
So a core belief on a sump that defines how I'd approach a sump is the best sump design prioritizes function over form and bonus points if it's future-proof. So all of our counsel will really be tied to that core belief of best sump design prioritizes function over form and bonus points for future-proof.
All right, so here's what matters. Here's what we believe matters most. Remember what this thing is for. It holds gear and it allows for better gear. That's really all there is to it. I mean, you could have the really nice, gorgeous display and all this other stuff, but in the end, this is basically a box for your gear.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, the first time I had my first tank was a hang-on tank, and then I bought one with a sump, and I'm like, well, what does a sump do? Yeah. You know, all it really does is gives you a place to hide all of your gear. And then allows you to use better gear because it can be bigger. And I mean, there's a couple other things, but that's the core of it is I'm going to put my gear down in this thing and it will not be as ugly down there and I can probably use it a little bit better. So everything you do here should be about how do I hold the gear I want and how do I allow for the quality of gear I want. When I select the sump, nothing else really matters.
There you go.
So what else really we believe matters for a sump is open areas are often better than specific designs.
Oh man, this one bit us right here in this tank. And not necessarily bit us, but this is that where that bonus points for future proof comes through. But the 160 is a classic example of this one where it was specifically designed for the filter sock chamber and then into this we really wasn't a refugium chamber. We wanted a bigger one. So what ended up happening is you just start cutting away at the sump. If it were just a large open area for you to choose whether or not you're going to put a skimmer in there, whether or not you're going to make it a refugium, whether or not you're going to drop a roller mat or something in there, it's a whole lot simpler if you would have thought about that and had an open design well before you got pigeonholed into what you have.
So a lot of the trigger sumps are like that, where they're pretty open.
Big open.
The Red Sea glass ones, some of them are really
nice.
Just big open areas. They're not really fancy and just the way I like it.
Yeah.
And then I think of remember the old Skims ones? They look really cool. There's so many compartments for so many things.
You couldn't fit anything in there.
Couldn't fit anything in it.
I'm running into that with my tank in the office right now. I can't do anything in it.
Yeah, it's very, very limiting because we wasted all of the space with little gimmicky stuff. And so, when you're selecting a sump, and the form over function, or function over form rather, really think about how valuable open space is and adjustable space. Part of me wonders a little bit why don't I just use a 40-gallon breeder
and those foam or those
drop that aqua mesh down there, because
it worked.
The aqua mesh actually seems to capture the little micro bubbles
better than a baffle.
Yeah, and that'd be a good BRStv investigates. Actually,
actually a really good one.
But the mesh gets the the micro bubbles. Now the water, if the auto top off doesn't work, all of a sudden the return chamber doesn't evaporate because there's only a gallon of water in there. If it's the whole sump, then
you longer time until it actually runs dry.
And then I can reconfigure it. In fact, that was one of the things that we talked about today in a different video, which was the Fiji Cube has those configurable things for a 20 long. It's so you can take a 20 long, a 40 breeder, or a 10 gallon, and they sell you little baffle kits you can install into the glass box that you have to build exactly what you want. And then if you don't like it, it's usually probably just put together with some silicone. You can just razor it off and rebuild it to whatever way you want.
Man, I wonder if that's the future of over-under baffles are dead to me almost now.
Well,
we did that with the 20 long tank on the ULM. We took that aqua mesh and dropped it in there, and lo and behold, that worked perfectly. That's exactly what we need. And I think it's still running today in Nikki G's cube.
Yeah, and so the only thing would be if I if I wanted those baffles, it'd be like, all right, do I need a specific water level in the sump that like only baffles will create for me? Right. Yeah. Or can the whole thing just be at that level? Or do I have a micro bubble problem in this tank that only a baffle? And I haven't actually found the baffles to be particularly helpful there either.
And so, if you ever go to try to maintain them too, it's like there's almost always so close together, you cannot get into them. They're on the verge of being dead to me.
Verge of being dead to you, the baffles. All right. So think about the open areas better than specific designs.
Yeah. Next one up for there, what we believe matters most in a sump. Large enough to hold the water during a power outage. And that really comes down to that too, you know. And this isn't like water level. I ran into this problem once where I had such like a long lock line. It was a reef ready tank. So the lock lines, I added extra lock lines so they could swing out like this and actually point in a different direction. What I failed to realize is when I bumped that lock line down, it's now a straw siphoning my entire tank down into my sump. And guess what? My Profilux Model 4 did not have enough space to hold all of that water everywhere.
And you can drill little holes and stuff in the lock line, but those things get clogged too.
Yeah.
You know, and so just make sure that the whole thing can actually hold the water volume. If you're thinking of like one thing that matters most about a sump, it's figure that out. And it's really not that hard. You can look at your tank and just see like if the water went down to the bottom of the baffles or the bottom of the return, how many inches is it? There's calculators for, you know, if it's 2 inches by 24 by 20 or 48, that's how much water it is. Can this sump hold that much water? If the answer is yes, you're probably pretty good.
Yeah.
So do the math on it. All right. This one.
Oh, this is gonna rattle some cages here.
I wish that everybody would do this because you'll have way higher success rates in the end. You know, it seems to be catching on, but probably not as much as it should, which is, I'm on the actually.
Oh, no, you're up here at filter socks.
Oh, yeah, I was on the bottom here. Actually, this one too.
This one too.
This actually, I'm going to say all the things I just said apply to this one. It's funny. Okay, it's filter socks in the sump. Only if you want to change them. If you don't want to change your filter socks, skip it.
Don't buy a sump that has filter socks if you don't plan on changing them. And we're talking like changing every 3 days.
Yeah, like the filter socks only work if you change them every 3 days.
Yeah, I mean we've tested it. We should probably revisit that test also. But every 3 days, if you're not if you're Johnny on the spot when it comes to hey. Day 3, this is sock changing day, then by all means get yourself a sump with a filter sock, because once you choose that filter sock option, if you choose not to change them, guess what? You're stuck with that space that was made for filter socks, and now you just have useless space in a sump.
Okay, the marketing team probably just pulled the Ethernet from us because you know, this is coming from people who sell like thousands, if not tens of thousands of filter socks. So yeah, I don't know, man. If you're not going to change them all the time, every 3 days, this is why you don't want one. Yeah, as somebody that used to use the filter socks, and I would just leave them in there, and the reason I would change them is because I'd hear the water overflow
over the top of them,
right?
Like they're doing nothing.
Okay, so what I found since then is that they're actually doing more harm than they're doing good. And like, I used to not like it when people call a canister filter a nitrate factory because they're not really creating nitrate.
No.
It's not pulling it out of thin air. It's just a filter. You know? And like,
it's a filter that you're...
Nitrate is the food you put in.
So it's a filter you're less likely to change because of all of the process to get through it and change it.
Filter socks. Nitrate factory, phosphate factory. This is why, because it captures all of not all, but like a lot of the turds and the food and everything in there, and it has to decay inside of that to the point that it breaks down into little molecules and release back in the tank. Some of which the skimmer will remove. But here's the piece of it is if you take out all of the filter socks, the skimmer will perform way better. Go test it if you're wondering right now. Pull out your filter socks and watch how your skimmer actually performs better. And I've seen it now a lot on the fleece material. When the fleece material is pulling all of the turds and everything out of the water and the decaying food, the skimmer doesn't really produce much because it's not in there.
Yeah.
Right? And even if at the times where I've seen it get clogged or the little sensor stops working and it's going down the overflow and all the stuff's decaying, still the skimmer doesn't work. But the moment I pull the fleece out, all of a sudden the skimmer works better, right? And it's not that like I need the skimmer to work better because I'm actually happy the fleece is way easier to use.
Yeah.
But so filter socks here only if you plan on using them. Otherwise, pick a design that doesn't handicap you to that.
Yep.
Kind of like the one we had here where we had to cut them all out to put the filter or the original roller mat in.
That's true. Which leads to the next one. And I mean, people are all over it. Fleece is the future. I personally, I know I am not astute, or I'm not rigid in my ways enough to pull filter socks every 3 days. I'm just not going to do it. I'm lazy. I won't have filter socks. But what I will do is change out that roll once it's done and completely rolled up. Right? That means that gives me a month or 2 months in some cases where I don't have to do anything other than, and then at the end I just go, oh, new one, done. Count me in. And not only that, it's such an effective tool, a filter tool.
I'm gonna go like some people are like, oh well, I don't want to spend the money on that. Okay, I understand.
Okay.
But here's the thing: skip the skimmer then, because I think the filter fleece is actually doing a better job than the skimmer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
So I think you're actually pulling out more waste with the actual rolling all the turds in the food, especially if you have high flow that keeps it suspended.
You're right.
Than you are in the skimmer. And so I know some people are thinking that's blasphemy. What, you mean no skimmer? Like, no, I just want the most effective nutrient solution and pollution solution for my money.
Yeah.
And the reality is if more of us end up demanding and buying these fleece solutions, dude, it's just a roll of toilet paper and a motor with a float switch. It should only add like $100 to the whole design,
Yeah.
Maybe 150, I don't know. But like
they're going to start getting cheaper.
It doesn't require any maintenance. Like your skimmer, you have to tune it. You have to make it work. You have to empty it. You have to do all this stuff to it. Why don't I just pull out the turds before they actually broke down and it just rolls it right out of the tank for me?
Throw it away.
Yeah.
Well, it is an adjustable tool, a filter too, as well too, because I can adjust, the water level in some cases where, I will wait for my water level to reach here before it starts to roll, meaning is a little more time where this material is exposed in the water. There is more time for it to break down. Or if I want to be a complete neat freak, I can go the opposite way and say, I don't want my turds to be, my filter toilet paper roll to be in the water decaying for any amount of time, gone immediately.
Mm-hmm. So on my fleece roll, there's like a water level sensor, and a lot of them will have this. And basically the way it works is if you put the water temperature higher, I got a big gigantic square of fleece here, that is getting clogged over time. Once it gets clogged, it'll stop letting water through, the water level will go up and it'll expose a little bit new paper. All right, well, that allows for some of it to rot if you make it too high. If I shrink it down, well, now only this much is exposed to water flow going through it, and that clogs way, way, way faster, and it's pulling out the turds in real time. So you can actually adjust the performance of your filter so easy with just water level, no tuning, no garbage.
The only way you can do that with a filter sock is I'm going to change it every day, or I'm going to change it every week.
Yeah, so bravo to Trigger for building like the Platinum series, but like, step up. Other people should be producing these things, and they should get cheaper because it's just a toilet paper roll with a motor on it and a float switch. It's not rocket science. and what will happen? The reason that people will make them, by the way, is because all of us are demanding them and buying them.
We want fleece rollers.
We want fleece rollers. Filter socks are dead to me. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Think about that. That's the core belief on sumps, some of those things. But what are the hard lessons that we would like to avoid in the future?
So this is out of our experience, straight from my experience. A hard lesson. One of the first one, water volume or dilution is minimal benefit. Meaning, like, how many times did you hear, add a sump because the water level or the added water volume means less problems. Now, maybe if I have like a 10-gallon tank or a 20-gallon tank and I add a 40 breeder for a sump, then 100%. Like I've just added a lot more water volume, meaning the dilution of pollutants and everything else that can go wrong in the tank has just bought me a bunch of buffer room. But if I put a 60 or 40-gallon type of sump on like a 200-gallon tank, I really didn't buy myself jack. Nothing.
Yeah. So like that's the piece that like oftentimes if people regurgitate the same message over enough that it is like partially true, then it just becomes fact, right?
That one I've heard that one so many times.
Get the biggest sump you can because water volume's king, blah, blah, blah. Well, like, that sentence isn't wrong. It's just do the math while you're doing it.
Yeah,
if I have a 200-gallon tank and a 20% or 20-gallon sump or whatever, 40-gallon sump, like I'm only diluting it by 20%, meaning like if nitrate was going to be 10, it's now 12. Like test kit doesn't even measure that accurately, you know, like it isn't really of that much value. But like you said, if I put a 40-gallon breeder on a 10-gallon cube, I just, you know, turned it into 5 times as much water. If it was
now that matters.
Triple the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely true there. So do the math for yourself when people are giving that advice.
Don't pick a sump just because somebody tells you the water volume means it's going to benefit your tank more, the dilution.
Yeah, and so the message is always bigger is better in sumps too. But when you do that, then I don't have any room in there for my test kits. I don't have room for the reservoirs, for
my CO2 canister, for my calcium reactor.
I don't have any room for anything in there.
Yeah, all I need is for the sump to hold the right size equipment and to hold the water level when the power goes out. Like, it doesn't have to be as big as possible, because then you're sacrificing some space that you could use for other things.
All right, just high percentage, low percentage pass. Consider that how you do it. Hard lessons for the future on sumps as well. All-in-one forces cheaper gear that doesn't work as well, and water changes are number one. All right, so this is kind of inverse of what we said earlier, but if you buy an all-in-one, the whole thing will be cheaper because you don't have the option to buy a fancy sump, and a fancy plumbing, and a fancy skimmer, and a fancy roller mat.
Yeah.
And water changes are just the number one thing, and it will take a lot of salt before you've overcome the cost of all those things that we just mentioned. So again, a plug for the all-in-one design, specifically for newer reefers who just want to get a successful tank under the belt that looks clean and nice in pretty much any room.
Yeah, 100%. Another hard lesson learned: get the sump right the first time, because it's the hardest to change and no one does it. Again, this is a lesson learned by myself. I bought the Profilux 4, or the Aquarium Profilux 4, old sump back in the day. The only way to get it in and out of my system was when my tank was off the stand and I had to go straight down through. Well, guess what happens now if I want to change my sump or change the design, or if it breaks, I can't get that thing out. I have to tear my whole entire tank apart just to get it out.
So there's the general message of buy once, because it actually will cost you 5 times as much to just keep buying the same damn thing over and over and over again. But if it's a skimmer, so be it. You just keep swapping it out. I would still tell you to just go skimmerless until you can afford the one you want. Do some water changes until you get there. But even if that wasn't the case, I can just swap them out pretty easy. The sump is so hard to change. Plumbing, gluing, everything. Downtime. Every wire's going into this thing. You will never do it.
Yeah.
Like right now, if Randy came to me, he doesn't like the sump that's on his 60. If he came to me and said, Ryan, can I have a new sump? I'd be like, go pick whatever one you want, dude. I don't care.
Yeah.
Will you actually do it?
No, because that thing was plumbed by Aaron, and I know how well it is and how perfect every angle, and I would never be able to get it right the same way.
Dude, it was
never.
It was done really, really well, but at the same time, like the skim sump was too intricate and is really limiting.
Yep. I want a new sump. Dang sure won't do it.
We've talked about replacing the sump on the 160 here too, but nobody's got time for that garbage. And this one's actually sitting out.
That's true.
It would have to be catastrophically wrong.
Yeah.
To change. So get it right the first time on a sump. think about it and make sure you do it. It's probably the most critical piece to get right the first time, because you will probably never, ever, ever change it.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Room for dual returns.
This is, I think,
repeat it again.
I do not think there should be sump manufacturers out there who are making return chambers so small that I can't fit 2 return pumps in there. Stop making them that way.
Yeah.
Like, you should always have the option for 2.
Okay, so 2 return pumps. This is the heart of the tank, connecting all the light support to the tank. If it goes down, well, the heart stopped working, and related things are going to start happening to the tank.
But what if you have 2 hearts?
Yeah, you got a backup heart. I want one right now. Yeah, so if you do that, and you have 2 returns, and the beauty of it is you can get 2 smaller ones. You know, because you don't need like perfect filtration in the event that one of them went down.
I just need the water to circulate.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just need water to go through it. So make sure that whatever the baffle space in your sump, even if you don't want to spend the money today, has room for 2 returns when finally you learn this lesson from it breaking and say, oh, I remember what those guys said. We should do this. And most of your your tanks have actually 2
overflows,
or nozzles,
returns,
or return areas, and it's super easy to just plumb one back up to each one.
You know what was really hard on the 160 is splitting off and manifolding 2 returns, right, off of 1 pump. Had we had this, insight back when the 160 went up, 1 return line would get 1 pump, 1 return line would get the other. And it would have been a much safer tank. Not that anything really happened to it, because we chose, in lieu of dual returns, after we realized this, we chose just a really reliable type pump.
Yeah, or buy a $2,000 pump.
Yeah, I mean,
which is way more expensive than just doing 2.
Yeah, so I don't think I'd ever set up another tank without 2 returns. And it's not. Yeah, it's all about the safety, and this goes back to the very first thing that we said is the most successful reefers plan for the inevitable as it happens. Well, 2 return pumps is one of the ways to do that.
So if you were going to say, hey, Ryan, you could have one of 2 things. You could have a $2,000 Vectra or $2,000 Abyss, or 2 few $100 Vectras. I would choose the Vectras regardless of the money. Yeah. Because even though it's cheaper, man, like the $2,000 pump, a single one with a single failure point, isn't as good as the 2 of the less expensive options. So dual returns. Make sure your sump has room for that. Here's one that a lot of people don't think, and again, I'm thinking skims again here. Hard lesson.
Hard lessons. Consider cleaning.
Consider how you're going to clean this bastard. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Right now, the little tiny skims one I have in my 60-gallon cube in the office that we did for the ULMs, I cannot get my hand. Not only okay, so there's filter socks, but there's a lid on there, which was a really cool idea. A lid to keep the sound down. But the lid is so small, I cannot get my arm past like my forearm, and I don't have big giant forearms, but I can't get down in there. Not only that, but it has a chamber in the back where the downspouts from the drains go down. Then there's a baffle. There's 0 chance that I can get back there. Not even with the end of a python, my hand. The only thing I could do is get like maybe a little peam up or something and get down there, stir it up, and hope I get all the detritus out. I can't even see in there.
Yeah, so like, I mean, a lot of people don't clean their sumps, and it might be because of this, actually, just because it's such
difficult.
A giant pain in the butt.
Yeah.
The sump is just designed not to do this, right? But if you get the right pump, you kind of create like a little vacuum and just suck all the garbage out. Like, what I do recently is that
the Ultra Zero.
The Ultra Zero, because the Ultra Zero sucks off the bottom, and you only have like that couple millimeters or whatever of water.
Yeah.
And there's so much garbage on there that all I got to do is move the Ultra Zero around, kind of like a little vacuum, and it just sucks all the garbage up, because the sump is open. It's an open space without 8 million little compartments in it.
Yeah.
And I can just clean it without having to do anything, really. And so consider that, because all that detritus and stuff, it's just kind of like a time bomb that's building up in the bottom of the sink.
And the sump is one of the easiest places to remove that stuff, because there is no sand, there is no rock, you don't have to move anything. The worst thing you have to do is move a skimmer out of the way and suck up the detritus off the bottom. It's the easiest to clean.
I hate to say it this way, but it's true. Dirty is synonymous with uncared for. And if you make it really hard to not to care for it, it's going to be dirty and uncared for.
100%.
There you go. All right, another hard lesson here is a sump without an area for a fuge. I will never, ever, ever do this again. Like never, well, unless there's some new miracle that shows up on my doorstep.
Yeah.
I made this mistake. I got this beautiful Royal exclusive sump. It's really elaborate. It's really cool. It's all lit up. It has the fleece on it. You know, perfect skimmer, perfect everything. But like I've always had some issues with nutrients in this tank because I'm not running the fuge, and the fuge is my favorite filter on the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's the most effective. It's the easiest thing, and there's no place for this on here. I'm gonna have to plumb one externally to make this happen, which is more leak thoughts and more pumps, more stuff to maintain. I personally, even if you don't think that you will use a fuge today, buy something that will allow you to use a fuge in the future if you so find that you want to. That's that piece up front.
Yep. What matters most? Open areas.
Open areas, bonus points for future proof.
Yeah, bonus points.
Yeah. All right. So what's next?